So that's what was going on. As I peeked from a distance at my in-laws' house, the moment I learned the truth, I was speechless. What were Anne's husband and his family thinking when they looked at her all this time? How many times have they deceived her with a calm face? Unforgivable. I'll make sure they all go to hell, no matter what. My name is Emma. I'm 45 years old and was just trying on my outfit for ceremonies and events when I realized I couldn't zip it up around my stomach. I thought I hadn't changed much in shape, but clearly, I've gained some visceral fat. The first time I wore this outfit, I was 30. My younger sister Anne, who had a weak heart since childhood, passed away at the young age of 27. It was caused by heart failure after pneumonia. Ironically, I was the only one who had a conversation with Anne on that fateful day I visited her hospital room. She had been married for just 2 years. She must have had so many things she still wanted to do. She never would have imagined leaving this world like this.
I want to walk under the fall leaves when I get discharged.
Remembering Anne's smiling face as she said that fills me with an indescribable sadness. The day of the funeral, which I attended without being able to accept the tragedy that had befallen my beloved sister, something happened. It was just before the ceremony began. When I went to the restroom, I saw Anne's husband, James, on the phone at a nearby lounge.
Yeah, after the ceremony, it'll settle down a bit in about a month. Yeah, I guess it's best to keep it low until the first anniversary.
I don't usually eavesdrop on people's calls, but I couldn't help but be curious this time. Keep it low until the first anniversary? What's that about? It must be about Dan. From the casual way James spoke, it didn't sound like he was talking to a coworker. All his family were at the ceremony. Who was he talking to?
Sorry to keep you waiting. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. No, the kid's fine. No one's caught on. My wife and her family don't have a clue that I have a child. Just relax at our place.
What? I was taken aback. Did he just say he has a child? By the way, Anne and James didn't have children. They chose not to because they weren't sure Anne's body could handle childbirth. They were each other's first spouses, and we had never heard anything about James having a child. What in the world is going on? Honestly, I was just confused by James's nonsensical conversation and couldn't sort out my thoughts. But then, I remembered the desperate words Anne tried to tell me just before she was taken to the surgery room.
My parents' house, there's a child.
Soon after, Anne lost consciousness and passed away without waking up a few days later, so I never heard the rest. I was the only one who heard those words. Until now, I was too shocked by the loss of Anne to even think about what those words meant. But then, the word, my parents' house, from Anne, and just relax at our place, from James. If it was the house they lived in together, Anne would have said, our house, not my parents' house. And there's no child at my parents' house. Suddenly, it hit me. Maybe, just maybe, the child with the person James was speaking to is living at James's parents' house. When that thought crossed my mind, I couldn't stay put. If that was really the case, I couldn't forgive James. Desperate to check my hunch, I quickly left the funeral home after offering incense to Anne and headed to James's parents' house. James's parents' house is within walking distance from the house where Anne and James lived.
I'm an only child and my parents are elderly, so I want to live close to them.
James himself had decided to live here for that reason.
I'm anxious about whether I can get along even if our family interactions increase.
Anne complained about setting up their home near her in-laws' place. But in reality, since it was so close, she hardly ever visited, and there was virtually no family interaction. Maybe that's why at the funeral, James's parents hardly seemed to mourn Anne's misfortune. They were fiddling with their cell phones whenever they had a moment, to the point of being somewhat appalling. Well, if the relationship was that distant because of the in-law situation, maybe it's to be expected. But they could have at least pretended a bit more at a time like this. As I recalled the parents' attitude and arrived at James's family home, I hesitated to ring the doorbell. There shouldn't have been anyone home. Everyone was supposed to be at Anne's funeral. But what if someone did come out? What would I say to them? I had no concrete evidence of James cheating. Facing the unknown without enough information, I wasn't confident about winning. While pondering, I went around to the garden and sneakily peeked inside the house. The windows weren't closed, and I could see everything inside. Wait, is there really someone inside? Just as I was startled by the thought.
Stop squirming, wait. Hey, don't run around. We.
A child came running out into the garden, followed by a woman I didn't recognize. I quickly hid and watched the two from the shadows. The child's face looked a lot like James. He was still unsteady on his feet. Probably just started walking a few months ago. The woman was about the same age as James. The area around her mouth looked similar to the child's, and she must be the mother. Oh, had James really betrayed Anne? Since when? When did Anne realize this? As the pieces of my suspicions neatly fit together, more and more concerns popped up, and I couldn't clear my head. In fact, I even started to tear up. I will never forgive him. I swore to myself that I would make sure James pays for what he did to Anne on her behalf. Later, I returned to the funeral hall. My sudden departure from the ceremony had raised suspicions among all attendees. I couldn't stay there because of the shock of losing Anne. When I said that, it seemed to convince everyone. It's unlikely they think I went to James's house, but I was relieved that I didn't arouse any strange suspicions from James or his family. The next day, I decided to hire the only detective agency in the area to investigate James. But it turned out that the agency was run by Sarah, a friend of Anne. She had also attended the funeral, so I remembered her well. And Anne had also hired her company to investigate her husband, Sarah told me.
After I reported the results of the investigation, Anne's health deteriorated and she passed away. I really shouldn't be breaking confidentiality, but Anne really looked up to you as her sister, so I'm sure she'd forgive me for telling you.
With that, Sarah informed me of the circumstances under which Anne had hired the detective agency and the results of the investigation. Once, despite being engaged, Anne and James almost broke up. The reason was James's so-called cold feet. With just half a year left until the wedding, after the marriage registration was complete, he brought it up.
I'm not confident I can protect Anne with her weak heart. I want to keep some distance.
After much deliberation, Anne agreed to James's request and chose to put some distance between them.
I really want to marry Anne after all.
About 2 months later, James came back apologizing, and they were able to smoothly proceed and have their wedding. Despite being newlyweds, James worked tirelessly on weekends, aspiring to one day buy a house for Anne, who he had troubled so much. This meant they spent considerably less time together, yet Anne talked about it as if it was a sweet gesture. "It's all good now. I thought it was sweet, but..." In reality, right after their engagement, James had started an affair with a childhood friend, Lisa. He and Lisa had dated before, but broke up over minor disagreements. After meeting and getting engaged to Anne, James still harbored feelings for his old flame. Then, Lisa reached out to him, and sparks reignited. Moreover, his cold feet excuse was a lie. Around that time, Lisa got pregnant, and James, who was pondering whether to divorce Anne and marry her, had even leaked this dilemma to his friends. Lisa insisted, "I won't demand marriage if you stay with me, but I'm having this baby." He didn't want to leave her, yet he also didn't want to tell his legitimate wife, Anne, about the child outside their marriage. Nor could he deny his child with the woman he loved. Though he didn't want her to have the baby, she was adamant about it. Stuck and desperate, James consulted his parents.
"Since it's our first grandchild, let her have the baby."
The parents were the ones who suggested it. His parents had initially pushed for his marriage to Lisa, the childhood friend they knew well. Plus, they were not fond of Anne, who was frail, and they often complained about not being able to see a grandchild.
They said Anne is frail and won't last long anyway. After she's gone, acknowledge the child and remarry Lisa.
The mistress wholeheartedly agreed to this outrageous plan. It was a favorable situation for James, too.
If that's what my parents say, then it might be an option.
James agreed, and it was settled that Lisa would have the baby. Lisa was an only child like James, and her parents had already passed away. Therefore, James's parents frequently visited Lisa's home across the street to help out during the pregnancy and after the birth. The claim that James was working on weekends right after his wedding was a lie. He was likely visiting the newborn at that time. There were eyewitness accounts from neighbors of James frequently visiting Lisa's house. This suggests that the reason for moving close to his elderly parents was also a lie. More likely, he wanted to be close to see his child. As the child grew, "We want to see our grandchild grow up close," said James' parents, and it seems the child and Lisa spent more time at James's house. That's why they found excuses to keep Anne away from James' parents' home, eventually stopping her visits altogether. It's appalling how the entire family seemed to endorse the affair. Anne only became aware of James's infidelity about a month ago. Feeling unwell, Anne had come home early from work and was resting. He probably didn't realize that Anne was there. James, who usually never emails or calls at home, came back home a bit earlier that day and was on the phone.
I got off work early. Can I come over now? What? My wife? She's at work, so she won't notice. She's been feeling sick a lot lately and goes to bed early. If I say I'm working late, I can stay longer. Yeah, I also want to live with you guys soon. Every time she says she's not feeling well, I kind of hope she won't be long now.
Imagine how Anne felt hearing that from her sickbed. Just the thought is heart-wrenching. This incident led Anne to realize James's infidelity, and she turned to Sarah's detective agency for help. The investigation results came out, and just when she was about to confront James with a divorce, she collapsed and passed away.
Anne must have felt so betrayed.
Sarah concluded, looking down. That must be true. I want to avenge Anne. I couldn't stand the thought of her in-laws getting to enjoy their grandchild while James and his mistress remarried as if nothing had happened. However, having just grasped the whole situation, I was unsure what to do next. After some thought, a light bulb went off. "Sarah, are you good with computers?"
Leave it to me.
She replied with a smile. The next day, I headed to James' family home. When I rang the doorbell, Mary, Anne's mother-in-law, appeared on the monitor and looked surprised to see me.
"Oh, Emma, what brings you here?"
She exclaimed with a slightly shaky voice. "I have something to discuss with you about Anne's personal belongings. Do you have a moment?" Mary fell silent and then the intercom turned off. Maybe they won't let me in. Feeling a bit anxious, I waited a while longer.
Emma, I'm sorry. The place was a mess, so I was just tidying up. Please come in.
James appeared. "Oh, James, you're here. Perfect," I said with a smile, which made his expression stiffen. He thinks I don't know about the affair, but his face betrays his guilt. In fact, I had just seen the mistress and child through the window. What he had cleaned up must have been those two. Wonder which room they're hiding in now. As James's parents, and he awkwardly eyed me while ushering me into the room. I took a sip of the tea they offered, and as if reading the room, James asked,
What about Anne's belongings?
"Oh yes, it's this," I said, placing a photo on the table. Upon seeing the photo, James and his parents froze.
"James, who is this?"
Oh, no, I don't know her.
The photo showed James and a woman embracing in bed. "This was sent to our house the other day. It seems, James, you've been having an affair." Both parents glared at James, who frantically shook his head.
Wait, I don't remember this photo.
James exclaimed. As he protested, I produced more photos. Each showed James kissing the woman or on a date at a nearby amusement park. People who cheat don't say, "I remember it," do they? I muttered, looking down.
"You're such a child."
Mary raised her voice.
It's not true, Mom. I don't know anything about this.
"Lies. Then what about these photos? And you have a child with Lisa?"
"A child?" I quickly reacted to Mary's words. Anne's father-in-law opened his mouth, looking guilty. "Is this child the one you're talking about? So, Lisa is this woman?" I then showed a photo of James holding a child.
"Why?"
The whole in-law family was at a loss for words.
No, that's not true.
James kept shouting.
"This worthless son.
Mary slapped James on the cheek.
Did you have other children too?"
Listen to me, Mom, Dad.
But Mary and her husband, Anne's father-in-law, wouldn't listen to James and repeatedly berated him for betraying their beloved grandchild.
What's wrong with you, bringing such nonsense here?
It was sent to the house. I don't understand it either. I came here wanting an explanation. James, you do have a child, right? I glared at James, and he was at a loss for words. Well, honestly, James is right in a way. James doesn't have any other affair partners besides Lisa. I wouldn't tell them for the world as I might get sued for defamation later, but this photo was a composite I had Sarah create. I could have used a real photo of the actual mistress and child, but I had my reasons for using a composite. You do have a child, don't you? My plan was to corner him into slipping up, but Mary slipped up sooner than I expected, which was lucky. Your silence means it's true, right? Just now, Mary mentioned there's a child, and something about Lisa? Mary and Ronnie froze on the spot at my words. The content sent with these photos said that these kids are being taken care of at this house.
That's not true.
Mary quickly denied my words. Is that true?
There's no way that's true.
Then, please show me every room.
What?
Without waiting for their permission, I stood up and headed to the next room.
Wait, don't just snoop around someone's house.
James raised his voice. If there's nothing to hide, just show me. I don't mind if it's a bit messy.
It's not about that.
Then, what is the problem?
That is.
Without waiting for James' response, I broke free from Mary and Anne's father-in-law's attempts to stop me and peered into the next room. Not here. So I went upstairs. I was quite hindered and scraped my knees, but this is nothing compared to the pain Anne suffered. I'm willing to endure a few scratches. As I shoved past the in-laws and kicked James aside, the moment I opened the door to the upstairs room, there they were. In the room, Lisa and a child were sitting on the bed. Oh my, a different woman and child from the photo. What's this about?
This is.
James turned pale at my words.
Photo?
Lisa looked at me puzzled. Yes, it seems James was having an affair while my sister was still around. Look, this photo. When I showed Lisa the composite photo, her face quickly twisted in anger, and she crushed the photo in her hand.
What is this? You had another woman.
No, Lisa, it's not like that. Listen.
Lisa was furious, and James turned pale. So, there's another woman, so you are one of James's women too. I chimed in, grateful for the admission. Mary and Anne's father-in-law were at a loss for words in this turbulent scene, holding their heads.
Why? You said I was the main one, so it was okay not to get married. I just wanted to have your child and stay by your side, but there were others.
It's not like that, Lisa. This is probably some misunderstanding. A look-alike or a composite.
Probably. Why can't you say it's definitely not true? I can't trust you anymore.
Lisa's distrust peaked when James, flustered, failed to outright deny it after the momentary shock of composite. A man this indecisive isn't worth your trust. Anne's life was also ruined by this man. My stern advice tightened Lisa's face. In truth, Anne's life was ruined by Lisa too. But she must be aware of that given her expression, so there's no need to say it. Right now, I need to act like I'm on Lisa's side to get her to listen to me. Neither the in-law family nor Lisa will find happiness, which aligns with my goal.
Right.
Lisa muttered.
Wait, Lisa. I'm serious about you.
James desperately tried to convince Lisa, but I interrupted. You were not serious about Anne, but in front of Lisa, you're all about serious, and even vowed to marry her, right? You really aren't worth believing. Lisa's face clouded over at my words. The fact of the composite photo, and doubts about whether his words to her were sincere, began to set in. Good. If you were serious, you wouldn't be juggling two people from the start. Whatever the reason, you'd stick to one, right? As I emphatically repeated the words, Lisa's face grew increasingly somber. James was as pale as could be. Lisa could feel herself drifting away from him.
Let's break up, James. I don't want to be just a convenient woman for you. After seeing that photo, I just can't believe it. I could handle being the second, but I definitely don't want to be the third woman.
Please, listen to me.
Moved by Lisa's tears, James impulsively grabbed her hand and yelled. However, Lisa shook off his hand.
I don't need recognition, just stay out of my life.
Saying this, she took her child and left the house. As his parents lost the child and the prospective daughter-in-law, they got depressed. I mentally celebrated with a fist pump. Later, I made James write a notice of termination of family relations, cutting off all ties with our family. Anne's inheritance, which was supposed to go to James, was also successfully waived. My father, a bit intimidating, had heard everything from me and went to yell at the in-law family.
I don't want to have anything to do with this house anymore, so waive the inheritance.
The in-laws, completely intimidated, persuaded James as well. Well, Anne's estate was meager, but it was good that not even a penny of Anne's went to him. Actually, on the day I brought the photo to James's house, a window happened to be open. Because of that, our loud conversation was clearly audible outside. Together with some revelations from a friend of Lisa who lived nearby, everything that happened at James's house became known around the neighborhood. As a result, rumors spread that that house is full of debauchery. James quit his job and left the area with his parents, as if fleeing. Meanwhile, about 2 months later, Lisa suddenly appeared at my family's home. She came to thank me for opening her eyes and to apologize for the disrespect she had shown to Anne, bringing $50,000 with her. I should appreciate Lisa's feelings, but the pain Anne suffered couldn't be resolved with money. It doesn't seem right for us to forgive someone for something unforgivable just because they gave us money. I appreciate the sentiment, but I don't want money from someone who has done such dirty deeds. We didn't accept any of it. Instead, we had the money donated to a nearby children's home where Anne used to work. What? You think that kind of woman would actually make the donation? Don't worry, I went with her to make sure she really did donate it. Anne would surely be happy with this use of the funds. I hope that the children, who have a future ahead of them, will be happy, also for Anne's sake. Embarrassingly enough, I struggled with sister loss for a while and even suffered mentally. There was a time when it got so bad that I quit my job. But I've gradually recovered, and now I'm working in administration at Sarah's detective agency. Actually, since that incident, Sarah and I have become very close. We both lost someone important in such a horrible way, and I think that created a bond between us. And despite not having a good image of marriage because of what happened to Anne, I married my boyfriend of 4 years last year. The COVID-19 pandemic and the experience of losing Anne made me realize you never know when you might not be able to be with your loved ones, which pushed me to make the decision to marry. I want to live without regrets, making sure I spend as much time as possible with my loved ones. Watch over me, Anne. I'll live a long life, not just for myself but for you too, and when I get there, let me tell you all the fun things and what you didn't know about here. I'm going to keep living life to the fullest. Yeah.